Start this thing. Alright, so last week we left off beginning our journey from where they first made the sanctuary, and we were leaving Sinai, and Moses had just died and passed the reins off to Joshua, who is now going to lead the Israelites to the promised land. So, let us continue and see where the ark of God will be going with the Israelites as it guides them, right? So the first thing we're going to do is open up to Joshua chapter 4. And I apologize because we're going to read a lot today. So get ready. We're going to do a lot of reading because I think there's some lessons here that we should take note of things that happen, and the ark is kind of the central theme of everything that we're going to be looking over. So beginning with Joshua, we're going to cross the River Jordan, and we'll see the magnificence of God transpire. So Joshua chapter 4. Are we there? Amen. Okay. You guys can see.
Yeah, that's Joshua chapter 4, verse 6, and then 18.
So we're reading the whole chapter.
Yeah, we're going to read the whole chapter. All right, we'll take turns. So we'll start on this side of the room here. Gary, can you start us off?
Joshua chapter 4.
Okay. And it came to pass when all the people were clean, passed over Jordan, that the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, Take you 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe, a man, and command ye them, saying, Take you hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12 stones, and ye shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place, where ye shall lodge this night. And Joshua called the 12 men whom he had prepared of the children of Israel, out of every tribe a man. And Joshua said unto them, Pass over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of Jordan, and take you up every man of you a stone upon his shoulder, according unto the number of the tribes of the children of Israel.
And this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, What mean ye by these stones? Then ye shall answer them, that the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it passed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be for a memorial unto the children of Israel forever. And the children of Israel did so as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones out of the midst of the Jordan, as the Lord spake unto Joshua, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them unto the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. And Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests which bear the ark of the covenant stood, and they are there unto this day. For the priests which bear the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan, until everything was finished that the Lord commanded Joshua to speak unto the people according to all that Moses commanded Joshua. And the people hasted and passed over. And it came to pass that when all the people were clean, passed over, that the ark of the Lord passed over, and the priests in the presence of the people. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and half of the tribe of Manasseh passed over armed before the children of Israel, as Moses spake to them.
All right, pause right there. Because I just want to remember one little detail that we've been seeing on a couple of these verses. The stones, the 12 stones that they're putting aside, right? It's like a little makeshift altar in a way. Just remember that, because we're going to see that again later.
Mhm.
Not necessarily here, but just remember the 12 stones stacked here.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
About 40,000 prepared for war passed over before the Lord unto battle to the plains of Jericho. On that day the Lord magnified Joshua in the sight of all Israel, and they feared him as they feared Moses all the days of his life. And the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, Command the priests that bear the ark of the testimony, that they can't come up out of Jordan. Joshua therefore commanded the priests, saying, Come ye up out of Jordan. And it came to pass that when the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord were come up out of the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up unto the dry land, that the waters of the Jordan returned unto their place, and flowed over all the banks as they did before.
All right, stop right there.
Mhm.
So what has just happened here? I talked too much last time. I want you guys to talk this time. So yeah, what did we just read? Joshua chapter 4. What has just happened? They're at the river Jordan. They've been laying down these stones, right, so they can get across. And God did a miracle right there, right? To help them get across. But more importantly, the priests went in the water, right? And stood in the midst. And then they were able to cross. Where are they going now? We're crossing over to the promised land, right? So Canaan is what we're thinking, right? Canaan. But there's a specific name for it in the next verse that we're about to read. So Joshua 4:19.
Border of Jericho?
The border of Jericho. Well, before that.
Oh.
Jordan.
Gilgal.
Oh, okay.
Gilgal.
Okay.
Gilgal. Gilgal. So that's the first encampment.
Mhm.
Right, the first encampment after they left Sinai. And this is considered the entrance to the promised land, right? So we've crossed the river Jordan, now we're in Gilgal, and we are on the border of Jericho. And we are now into the promised land that God promised them. So, historical factoid here, according to Common Relief Chronology, it was on the 10th day of the first month of the year 1451 BC. That they crossed over into Gilgal. And up till this time, they didn't have a permanent place, right, for the sanctuary. It just kind of moved around. But now they're entering into this area where they're going to eventually get to a place where it will be more permanently located, right? So let's keep going here. Chapter 4. You don't have to read the whole thing. We can.
That's why I stopped. I wasn't reading.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. You got next.
19.
Yeah, 19.
And the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and encamped in Gilgal, on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of Jordan, which Joshua preached in Gilgal, And he spake unto the children of Israel, saying, when your children shall ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what mean these stones? Then ye shall let your children know, saying, Israel came over this Jordan on dry land. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of Jordan from before you until ye were passed over. And the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up from before us until we were gone over, that all the people of the earth might know the hand of the Lord, that it is mighty, that ye might fear the Lord your God forever.
Amen. Amen. So this was another lesson for Israel, right? God had led them through the Red Sea. Now they're at the same place in Jordan, needing a little bit of water movement, right? God does it again, and they glorify His name for His miracles. And just one thing to note is that, when the people are faithful and God is in their midst, He blesses them. Right? So as we're moving along, we're being blessed because the people are currently faithful. That will soon change. But let's keep going. So now turn to Joshua 6. We're going to see what happens next now that we are in Gilgal, which is the border of Jericho.
Read.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness, till all the people.
Wait.
No.
Next chapter.
Oh, 6. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said unto them.
Wait.
Take,
Chapter 6.
you said chapter 6.
Verse 1.
This is chapter 6.
No,
Verse 1.
chapter-
Joshua.
Oh, well, I thought you said verse 6.
No, chapter 6.
Verse 1.
6:1,
there.
the beginning, yeah.
Okay, I got you. I'm on the same page. Now Jericho was straitly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out, and none came in. The Lord said unto Joshua, See, I have given into thy hand Jericho, and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor. And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days, and 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns. And the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow with the trumpets. And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast with the horns, the ram's horns, and when ye hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up, every man straight before him. And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests, and said unto them, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. And he said unto the people, Pass on, and compass the city, and let him that is armed pass on before the ark of the Lord. And it came to pass, when Joshua had spoken unto the people, that the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns passed on before the Lord, and blew with the trumpets. The ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. And the armed men went before the priests that blew with the trumpets, and the reward came after the ark, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And Joshua had commanded the people, saying, Ye shall not shout, nor make any noise with your voice, neither shall any word proceed out of your mouth until the day I bid you shout. Then shall ye shout. So the ark of the Lord compassed the city, going about it once, and they came into the camp, and lodged in the camp. Keep going.
Yeah.
Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. And the 7 priests, bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord, went on continually, and blew with the trumpet. And the armed men went before them, but the rearward came after the ark of the Lord, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And the second day they compassed the city once, and returned into the camp. So they did 6 days. And it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day, and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times. And it came to pass at the 7th time, when the priests blew with the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for the Lord has given you the city, and the city shall be accursed. And the city shall be accursed, even it, and all that are therein to the Lord. Only Rahab, the harlot, shall live, she and all that are with her in the house, before she hid the messengers that we sent. And ye in any wise, keep yourselves from the accursed thing, lest ye make yourselves accursed. When ye take of the accursed thing, and make the camp of Israel accursed and trouble it. But all the silver and gold and vessels of brass and iron are consecrated unto the Lord. They shall come into the treasury of the Lord. So the people shouted. That's it? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead and stop there.
All right.
Because the next, they're pillaging the city, basically, the next couple verses, right? But I want to throw out a question from what we read there. Is there a significance to the number of times compassing around the city?
7.
7 days, right?
7 days.
But the first 6 days they did one,
One.
right? The first 6 days they did one. The 7th day they went around 7 times, and then they shouted and blew the horns, and then the city came down. The walls came down. But is there a significance to that number?
7 is the number of
Perfection.
The number of
Perfect, yeah.
perfection. You know what verse?
The 7th-day Sabbath. Genesis. God rest on the 7th day. Bless the Sabbath and holiday.
That's a good one.
But they went around 13 times, right?
In total. But yeah, the last day they went around 7 times.
Okay.
7 times. Just want to see if there's any significance to that, if anybody can find it. In the Bible or Spirit of Prophecy. It's okay. And while you're looking, I'll go ahead and tell you one thing that I forgot to say while we were here. When they crossed the river, Jesus was in front of the ark. And because he was walking in front of the ark, the waters receded. So he walked across the river Jordan. The ark followed him without them seeing that, right?
So where's that at?
That's in Spirit of Prophecy.
Okay. Can you give me the
339.
339?
Write it down.
Here, put it up here. First, what SP? 3, did I say 39? 399, sorry.
399?
99.2.
So it's, 1 SP, you said?
I got a text about the 7.
All right.
Proverbs
Yes.
chapter 6, verse 16.
16, okay. Wrote it up here.
I mean, I know we are the one who say stuff, but when I read this, I was like, okay.
All right, bro. Hit us. What do you got?
4616.
Proverbs chapter 6, verse 16. Someone can read it.
Anybody?
These 6 things that the Lord hates, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him.
Wait.
Proverbs chapter
No,
6.
yeah,
verse
yeah.
6.
I
Proverbs
don't get
chapter
it.
6,
How
16.
how is it like it's an abomination, but then the Lord wanted 7 times?
Isn't that supposed to be perfection?
Yeah.
That's what we say, but hey,
No,
the
man.
scriptures.
Hey, bro. Hey, you throwing us a curveball? You want to explain this one, bro? Come on, hold
I don't
on.
need to explain anything. The text is what it reads.
Yeah, but the seventh
But
is
Psalms
abomination.
12:6, that
But if
7
you-
means purification.
He's just saying 7 things are abomination,
What is that?
but.
No,
Psalm
he said
12:6.
16.
Psalm
My
These
12.
6 things do the Lord
Yeah.
hate.
Psalm
Yea,
12:6.
7 are the
You have to
abomination
look
unto
on the
him.
verse before.
Maybe referring to something else.
Let me ask you a question. Could it be that, okay.
Hey, but you know
Yeah,
what?
somebody said,
I kind of like that. I'll go with that because that kind of goes along with what happened here, right?
But the thing was, he said 7 was a perfect number,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have one.
Psalm.
Genesis 7:4, for yet 7 days, and I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and that was when after they had got into the ark and the door was closed.
That was chapter 7.
Genesis 7:4.
Okay.
And then Genesis 7:10, and it came to pass after 7 days, the water of the flood were upon the earth.
On the earth. So it's like God likes 7. He does things on 7.
Like 7 and 12.
Well, you look at Revelation 16, and
You write it down?
it talks about the 7 plagues.
7 plagues, yeah.
You know,
You got a verse? Or is that
you have verse, yeah, it's
just a
actually,
chapter?
it's all the way to the 7th one would end up in the
So the whole chapter?
17th verse,
The whole
right?
chapter? Okay.
But the whole chapter almost talks about the plague.
Angels and
Yeah.
mountains and trumpets and men.
Right, there
Where's
you
the-
go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so-
That's real good.
7
Yeah.
being the number of perfection, that's our own conclusion. We're not going to find that anywhere in the Bible. We're going to find verse after verse after verse after verse of 7 being in all kinds of different situations
Yeah.
and stories that 7 is the number of perfection. Those are our own words. But, I mean, there's hundreds of verses to prove it.
Yes, and we can keep filling up this whole board of verses, right? But the point is not, I wasn't trying to point us to perfection, right? I'm trying to point us that 7 is like an execution that God uses, right? 7 days at the 7th trumpet, you know, he will execute.
So,
Yeah, right.
so with mine, it's really Sister Regina alluded to it. It's really talking about 7 things,
Right.
right? So, just in case someone was to throw that out, but the Bible says 7. It's not 6 things he hates. 7 things is an abomination, you know. So, and Sister Krista, Larissa point is really valid because, you know, it is true. We see these 7s, and especially we're 7-day Adventists, we like it. You know, we have 7, 7, 7. We pray 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 in the evenings, like, so that God doesn't answer your prayer at 3 o'clock, you know. But it's really our application of the word when we see these 7s, but we won't find a text. So with that happening though, my only question is, where do we draw the line with our application when we read things? At what point do we keep going and say, okay, we're still within scriptural correctness? Or this one, you know, how do we balance things out now when we see things occurring and we're making the application? Because the Bible is supposed to be its own expositor, right? It should explain itself. So how do we find ourselves when we're trying to make things connect and it's not, or it connects for us but not connecting for someone else? You know, person might say, I don't see that in the word, that's your application. And another person, wow, that's beautiful, I like that. I accept it, you know. So that's where we.
But why the 7th day you went around 7 times? Why on the 7th day?
We don't have a verse that tells us
God-
why the seven.
Yeah, well, God said to do it this way. So they're just exercising what God had commanded them to do. Now, why did God say 7 days? That's something that, you know, God had pronounced. You know,
Yeah, we also have to remember that that's how the Bible does explain itself if you think about it. It's just like, does the Bible straight out say that women ordination is not, biblical? Well, no, you look for several different examples, right? And so in looking at the Bible, and you keep hitting the word 7, and you see it's a sum of constantly. So I mean, you can't ignore those particular texts and say, well, they don't mean that, and the Bible says upon 2 or 3 witnesses, let it be established. That's more than 2 or 3. So I think that's established.
there's other like number 12,
There's a
12
whole
stones,
bunch of them.
12 gates,
12,
12 tribes.
12 tribes.
See, so
Right.
God has other numbers as well that He
And that's
uses
why I
too.
said hold on to the
God likes math.
math.
Right, right.
God likes math.
Exactly.
Yes.
But
Yes.
even with Mary, it says 7 times.
What's that?
One time say, I think there's a significance with the number 7.
7 times 7?
So
Yes,
that,
7 times,
right, but
together,
that's what I'm
together.
getting at, right? So there's a significance, right? But it's not that it necessarily means perfection. This is something that
It seems
God,
like it's more like
He executes His plans upon, right? So there's some significance to Him, why He doesn't do it on the 6th day, He does it on the 7th day. Why is there 7 days in the week? Why is the 7th day the day that He kept holy, you know? I believe, and this is me just thinking about this, right, that it goes back to the Sabbath. It goes back to His seal, where He says that the 7th day, because that's the first 7 we see in the Bible, honestly, right? The first 7 we see is the 7th day of creation. He hallowed it. He blessed it. He puts His seal on it in the law to say that the 7th day is my day, this is my seal, this is my covenant with you, keep it and remember it, right? So from there, you see Him executing things by 7.
Almost
And
like
it's
a
almost
reminder.
like it points
Almost
back
like a reminder.
like a reminder, exactly. Yeah. So,
Yeah, too, and I also,
but we take hands here.
I'm sorry.
So I just want to say that the 7 being perfection is not just something that we created, because Ellen White herself alluded to it being a perfect number.
Thank you.
Um,
I was looking for that.
just to prove that point is 4MR 243.3. 4MR 243.3. The title of the chapter is Materials on the Sanctuary. Materials on the Sanctuary.
MR means manuscript release.
Manuscript release.
Yeah. Is it volume 4?
Yeah.
Volume 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
my paper.
So I will start with in a paragraph that says Christ fulfilled. So 4MR 243.3, Christ fulfilled. It says, Christ fulfilled still another feature of the type. His visage was so marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of man, so shall he sprinkle many nations. In the temple service, when the animal brought as a sacrifice was slain, the high priest, clothed in white robes, caught in his hand the blood that gushed forth and cast it in the direction of the tabernacle or temple. This was done 7 times as an expression of perfection. So Christ, the great antitype himself, both high priest and victim, clothed with his own spotless robes of righteousness, after giving his life for the world, cast the virtue of his offering of crimson current in the direction of the holy place, reconciling man to God through the blood of the cross.
That's good. That's good. So can we take away from that there's a high significance, not necessarily to the number 7, but God executing things on 7? So much so that the expression of perfection, right?
Yeah, and
Expression
even
of
she has another
perfection.
example about when Peter asked a question, how many times should we forgive? And why would the Lord say 70 times 7?
70 times.
It doesn't mean that you forgive your brother 490 times.
Right.
Also
And that's
prophetic too.
it.
Yeah.
That's per
That's
day.
prophetic.
That's per
That's
day.
prophetic. That's a prophetic number.
Yeah, the same as
Yeah.
490 days in the
Yeah.
prophetic.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It was referring to Israelite, their probation. Yeah.
490 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall be desolate.
Hey, by the way, I'm the number 7 child in my family.
Are you here?
They reach
But
perfection.
I'm not
There are things.
Messing us up, brother.
Remember when the little girl told I forgot his name to go into the water and dip 7 times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was it? Ruth?
I can't.
That was,
Yeah.
She didn't have any
The
name.
little maid.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
Name it.
Name
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Dirty water right that much. Yeah.
can I just say, with all of those, see, the spirit of prophecy, and we all know this, I'm just repeating it. The spirit of prophecy is like a magnet, and it opens up the word.
You mean magnifying?
Magnifying glass, thank you. And it opens up the word. And so we do know, if we look over these examples, that this has to be a number of perfection, because God always does that. And so the spirit of prophecy just breaks it down to our simple minds. But if you go over every single example, you'll see that it's it's what it is. So.
And that's why I like the way she wrote it there as an expression of perfection. Because when I read that, I think of Christ, right? He's the expression of perfection, right? So it's almost like, okay, it's not the number that's perfect. It's Christ, and this is how he does things, right? So the significance for us ends up being, the number, because he's executing it on 7s, right?
And if it was us, we'd probably pick a number like 6 because it's even.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And divides nicely, yeah.
Yeah.
7's odd.
So it's an odd
Uh-huh,
number. So you
exactly.
think of
That's strange number, yeah.
yeah.
Very good, very good. All right, so yeah, we were. Did anybody else have anything else to add to that? Okay, very good. So yeah, 7. We're gonna see this continuously as we go through the Bible, of course, right? As we have seen with many verses and many others. But yeah, they walked around for 6 days, one time, and then on the 7th day, 7 times. And then the walls of Jericho came down. Now, I wanted to look at Jericho just for that significance. Did you have something else, Regina?
Oh, I was just going to say Ed Reed. He has a sermon on talking about all of that. It's really good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who does?
Ed Reed.
Ed Reed.
Ed Reed.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Okay, so yeah, Jericho, I wanted us to just look at that. So after Jericho, well, basically the book of Joshua, right? The book of Joshua, we had all sorts of battles and them going through and basically taking over Canaan, which we're not gonna go into because it's a lot of time, but also because we're focusing on the Ark of the Covenant here, and those really is just, conquest that's happening, so,
Yeah, also, even,
yeah.
I was looking at even in Exodus when it's talking about the atonement.
Mm-hmm.
The 7 days shall know he unleavened bread. And the next text says 7 days shall go, no 11 point, okay. And it says 7 days shall, oh, 7 days shall go, thou shalt make an atonement for the altar. You know, these things. So it seems like seven is really have to do with perfection.
Okay, that's good. One more application here. All right.
So just to make sure we're clear on where we're at right now. So they killed and robbed from this city in the name of the Lord, right? That's what I'm getting. Is that what you're saying? Because I'm sorry, but as we were still talking about the 7 days thing, I was still like reading on. And when they said, yeah, they took the gold and silver and put it in their treasure.
They pillaged
for the Lord.
the
So
city,
they,
yes. Yes.
Right.
But this is, so we're, if you read the book of Joshua, you see a lot of this, right? But what's basically going on is God's judgments. God is going through with his people, and he's laying down judgments on the heathen, right? It's a word that they keep saying.
Passover till Pentecost, 7 weeks.
These
You know what I'm
people,
saying?
they were wicked.
So these are the wicked heathen. God's executing judgment against them for their wickedness.
You know,
I think we're going to, we were.
from Passover to Pentecost, 7 weeks. You know?
Oh, right, yeah.
You know all these things.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
It's the perfect math, right? Call it geometry, if you want. Okay, so after Jericho, lots more, right, Demetrius? That's what we're going on here. But these are God executing the judgment. He is cleansing Canaan, is what's going on, because this is the promised land for the children of Israel. But these wicked people have to be out of the way before they can dwell there. So that's essentially what happens in the rest of the book of Joshua as you keep going. So, like the destruction of Ai, which is another city, various alliances formed against Joshua, the division of the land by Lot. There's quite a few things that happen there, but we're going to skip all that because we're going now to the next place, right? Gilgal was where we stayed at before. And now we're going here, where something very significant is going to happen. Does anybody know where we're going next?
From Gilgal, going to the promised Canaan.
No, we're in the promised land already.
Going to
Across the River Jordan, we are in the promised land. Now we stopped at Gilgal, we had all this stuff happening.
Jericho. Jericho.
The next encampment
Shiloh.
of the sanctuary.
Shiloh.
Thank you, Regina. Shiloh, or Shiloh, however you want to say
We're
it.
at 18.
Shiloh. So Joshua 18:1 tells us that, right? That is the next destination. And somebody really quickly read that. You got it? 18:1?
Joshua 18:1.
Yeah.
The whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle of the congregation there, and the land was subdued before them.
There we go. So they set up the tabernacle at Shiloh. This is our next chapter. The journey of Israel and the Ark of the Covenant. Something very significant is going to occur here. And we're gonna read about that in 1 Samuel. Does anybody know what's about to happen?
Where the ark was taken by the, you're talking about with Samuel's sons, how they went into war and
Yeah.
It's not Samuel, so
it was not Samuel,
No,
it was,
no, Eli.
Eli, thank you.
Eli, yes. Eli. Yes, so let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 2, starting at verse 12. And we're going to see how things are starting to turn for the worse. 1 Samuel 2, verse 12.
No, the sons of Eli were sons of Belial.
Eli.
They knew not the Lord.
Hold on.
Huh?
Belial. Who's Belial?
Belial. Satanism.
Okay.
More like homosexual.
Yeah.
Dog worship, all of those kind of
Oh, so we know that these men are evil.
Yeah.
And they are in service in the tabernacle.
He just said something, which I don't know if anybody caught.
Yeah.
He just said homosexual,
Yeah,
they
go
were,
worship. Go worship. They practice those kind of things.
yeah, they were tripping.
Mm-hmm.
They were promiscuous all the way around.
Yeah.
All the way
Yeah.
around. And yeah, let's read on.
Although they were married.
We're reading verse 12 through.
Oh.
To 36. So 13, I think, is where we left off.
13.
And the priest's custom with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant came, while the flesh was in seething, with a flesh hook of 3 teeth in his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he stuck it into the pan, or kettle, or cauldron, or pot, all that the flesh hook brought up the priest took for himself. So they did in Shiloh unto all the Israelites that came thither. Also, before they burnt the fat, the priest's servant came and said to the man that sacrificed, Give flesh to roast for the priest, for he will not have sodden flesh of thee, but raw.
Okay, stop right there. So we've been studying the sanctuary service for weeks now, right? Is this how it's done?
No.
Peace offering.
Because even they want to roast, like burn roast, instead of cooking the way old guys said, or boiling, something like boiling. So they were doing contrary to the commands of God.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
the fat, they want to eat the fat which was commanded not to be eaten, all of those things, which represent sin and all of the priest should not be eating fat and all of those things.
Yes.
The burn.
That's it right there. Okay. Keep going.
And if any man said unto him, Let them not fail to burn the fat presently, and then take as much as thy soul desireth, then he would answer him, Nay, that thou shalt give it me now, and if not, I will take it by force.
Oh,
Fighting.
wait a minute.
The priest fighting, the priest of the Lord.
17.
I'm gonna
17.
just take
That
it.
sounds, that sounds like Lot.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like Lot,
Okay.
and it sounds like, yeah, the Sodomites, so in
Oh, it didn't stop there. Let's read one more verse. One more.
Wherefore,
17.
wherefore the sin of the young men was very great before the Lord, for men abhorred the offering of the Lord.
Okay. Okay. So these men are in service, right? They are the priests. And what are they doing? Okay.
Rebellion. They're-
Continue.
They were not.
Brother Davin.
yeah, I just have a
Yes.
question. Because you read in Judges 18 about Shiloh,
Yes.
and now you skip over to 1 Samuel chapter 2. How do we know we're still in Shiloh? Based on Samuel.
Not Judges. We read Joshua.
Joshua.
Joshua 6.
Joshua 6, right?
No, I skipped a whole bunch because it's a lot of conquest.
You just read something that
Stories.
says in Shiloh. It was-
We're jumping to, the reason we're jumping from Gilgal.
No, Shiloh is fine. I'm just saying,
Shiloh.
based on what we're reading about what's happening here,
Mhm.
how do we establish from Samuel that this is happening in Shiloh? We would just use one verse to say this is Shiloh,
Mhm.
and then talk about what's happening in Shiloh. So let me. It's in verse
Mhm.
1 Samuel chapter 1.
Verse 3.
Yes, I just-
And,
I'll put it,
1 Samuel chapter 1,
1?
Verse
verse
Arthur,
3.
Sorry?
Arthur, this, in Shiloh, right, when this occasion where Samuel and, Ophni and Orpah were in Shiloh, it's not like when the children were traveling from Egypt to Canaan. That was after. What I'm trying to say where these priests were doing those things, it was after they were in the land of Canaan.
Yeah, they were in the land. Okay.
What I'm saying, they were here already. This was like years after.
Yeah, well, they were moving the encampment.
No, what I'm saying,
Because
So verse
What-
14.
this occasion, and this occasion when they were doing these priests were doing these things, right?
okay,
It was not. Let's say the children of Israel were traveling. They said 14 whatever BC, right? That was not 14
well,
BC.
no. This is the date of the crossing.
Yes, what
This
I'm saying,
was, we
yes.
stepped into the
Yeah,
promised land.
yeah, what I'm saying,
Right.
this was years after.
Yeah, this was
This
years
is
after.
years after.
Yeah, this is years after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
14, it says Shiloh.
Yeah.
We know from chapter 4, verse 14. In 1 Samuel 2, verse 14, it says Shiloh.
Yeah.
So
Verse 3 is
seven.
It's the one that says, and this man went up out of his city yearly to worship and to sacrifice unto the Lord of hosts in Shiloh, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. So it shows worship, it shows the sanctuary, and it shows that they were doing it year by year. 1 Samuel 1, verse 3.
Verse 3.
Or Shiloh. Put it on
So
there, Shiloh.
so we have this
Right.
pointing us to Shiloh. Okay, so
Samuel 1 verse 3.
Yes.
First Samuel.
Right.
we know where we're at now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we didn't read that originally, right?
No,
But we just read
what
from
we read
12.
was in Joshua 18:1.
No, I mean, when
That
we-
was them going into Shiloh,
Right.
but we stayed there.
But what I'm
Right.
saying is when we read, the reason I knew that it was still Shiloh, because we didn't read that, we read from 1 Samuel 2:12, and we're going on to 36, but I knew that we were in Shiloh because it said in verse 14, that's all I'm saying.
Yes. And that was going, yeah. So we have a few references telling us where we are, right? Okay.
Verse 18.
Verse 18.
18.
18, yeah, 18.
But Samuel ministered before the Lord, being a child, girded with a linen ephod. Moreover, his mother made him a little coat and brought it to him from year to year, when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. And Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife, and said, the Lord give thee seed of this woman for the loan which is to lend to the Lord. And they went unto their own home. And the Lord visited Hannah, so that she conceived and bare 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the child Samuel grew before the Lord. Now Eli was very old, and heard all that his sons did unto all Israel, and how they lay with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And he said unto them, why do ye such things? For I hear of your evil dealings by all this people. Nay, my sons, for it is no good report that I hear. Ye make the Lord's people to transgress. If one man sin against another, the judge shall judge him. But if a man sin against the Lord, who shall entreat for him? Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto the voice of their father, because the Lord would slay them. And the child Samuel grew on and was in favor both with the Lord and also with men. And there came a man of God unto Eli, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Did I plainly appear unto the house of thy father, when they were in Egypt in Pharaoh's house? And did I choose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to offer upon mine altar, to burn incense, to bear an ephod before me? And did I give unto the house of thy father all the offerings made by fire of the children of Israel? Wherefore keep ye at my sacrifice and at mine offering, which I have commanded in my habitation, and honors thy sons above me, to make yourselves fat with the chiefest of all the offerings of Israel my people? Wherefore the Lord God of Israel saith, I said indeed that thy house and the house of thy father should walk before me forever, but now the Lord saith, Be it far from me, for them that honor me I will honor, and they that despise me shall be lightly esteemed. Behold, the days come that I will cut off thine arm and the arm of thy father's house, that there shall not be an old man in thine house. And thou shalt see an enemy in my habitation in all the wealth which God shall give Israel, and there shall not be an old man in thine house forever. And the man of thine, whom I shall not cut off from mine altar, shall be to consume thine eyes, and to grieve thine heart. And all the increase of thine house shall die in the flower of their age. And this shall be a sign unto thee, that shall come upon thy two sons, Hophni and Phinehas. In one day they shall die both of them. And I will raise me up a faithful priest that shall do according to that which is in mine heart and in my mind. And I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before mine anointed forever. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left in thine house shall come and crouch to him for a piece of silver and a morsel of bread, and shall say, Put me, I pray thee, into one of the priest's offices, that I may eat a piece of bread.
Ooh-wee, okay. We got a lot there. But first thing I want to say that I see, what was it, verse, where he says that you uplift your sons instead of me? You honor thy sons above me. That right there is a rebuke. And Ellen G. White actually talks about that in parenting. So he neglected his sons, basically, right? He would scold them, but he wouldn't reprove them. And what she says here, back to the same reference of here, right? Eli, the high priest, he exalted his sons to the priesthood. He alone was permitted to enter the most holy once a year, so he was the high priest. His sons ministered at the door of the tabernacle and officiated in the slaying of the beasts and at the altar of sacrifice. They continually abused the sacred office. They were selfish, covetous, gluttonous, and profligate. God reproved Eli for his criminal neglect of family discipline. Eli reproved his sons, but did not restrain them. So he would tell them, hey, you're doing wrong, but he didn't do anything about it. And they would just go on and do all kinds of stuff. We're going to read further that these men were adulterous with the women in the sanctuary.
Somewhere in Ellen White writing, I think it mentioned about Eli being benefiting from, because he became, I don't think, big, like, because he was like benefiting from the meat or, what I mean?
His sons did, he benefited.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't have children, so I'm not sure, but these are grown men now. Like, how long are we supposed to be responsible for adults?
Well,
Probably didn't brought them up in the right way.
that kind of tells us something right there,
But
right?
as they were growing up, probably he never reproved them when they were doing wrong. So when they were supposed to do what the Lord told them to do, they didn't do it, and He didn't correct them.
Yeah.
And so God got on him for not correcting his sons to do what he had told them to do.
Well,
Yeah,
also,
something was going on, is going on there, because the sons of Samuel, they were not upright either.
Well,
But
that's
it's
what I'm
not-
saying.
Yes, but I think something is going on with these two sons though. I think because I think Eli might be to the blame for it, that's why it was mentioned.
But see, Eli knew what his sons, because we as parents, we know how our children are, and their behaviors and things like that. And so Eli knew these two sons weren't doing right, and he didn't correct them when he saw that they were doing wrong. It's this kind of brings me to mind to Moses' brother Aaron and his two sons. God had gave them the right thing to do, and they didn't do it, so he took their lives
right.
because they were being disobedient.
But see,
Aaron.
God was mercy.
I'm sorry.
And it's interesting that we also just read now, there's a promise that your two sons will die.
Right.
And they will come to pass. Yes, so God executing his judgment.
Right, and I like what Beverly was saying. That's what I was thinking about Aaron's sons, and God was merciful to these young men because they had been apparently sounds like they've done it more than once, and we know they've probably done it many times. And not only that, in the Bible it was different. If you think back to Abraham, and his son was 4 years old when they picked out when they picked his wife, when Abraham sent his servant to pick his wife. So it was different back then. People were more respectful of what their parents said and what their parents, did. And, and another example I think about is Abraham. He was over his household. So back then when you had a big family as well as you had servants and stuff with worship, they were all commanded to come for worship, and you guided your household, and your household also included the servants and
Priest of the home.
yeah.
That's kind of like us. That's kind of like referring to us. If are the guidelines that God has given us. If we are not following the guidelines that God has given us, eventually, what's going to happen to us?
Yeah.
So it's the priests and everything that we're talking about, but it's reflecting us as ourselves, as not following like the sanctuary and the different things that God has pointed us to do correctly. And we decide, I'm going to do it this way. I'm not keeping the Sabbath right. I'm talking about this.
So you are now leading to a point that I did want to make where, we're looking at Israel, right? And we've read enough Spirit of Prophecy to know that we are Israel of today, right? So does this not apply to us as well?
Oh, most definitely it applies to us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Exactly.
And what's funny is that now, you're looking at people that are 40 years old, I was talking about.
We take hands, man.
Yeah, we take hands. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, keep going.
Well, I was saying, we're looking at people, I was talking about with Abraham and his son. But you think about children nowadays, people let their children run the household.
Yes.
Little bitty ones. We're not even talking about adults.
Right.
So if they're starting already.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
I got a hand over here.
Brother Davin. Yes, sir.
So, I don't want to use my words. It's in Signs of the Times, chapter 205. I remember when I was reading about the sin of the peace offering, that's when I found these quotes from the Spirit of Prophecy in connection to Ophni and Phinehas. Signs of the Times, chapter 205.
You're on the page.
Chapter 205.
Chapter page.
chapter 205.
Chapter 205.
That's the reference. Read the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, seriously.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, we should read. You guys want one paragraph?
Is that
No,
I
just
just
keep-
wanted
just
to
go
go to
ahead.
the actual reference.
Brother Davin, go
Yeah,
ahead.
we just gotta go to the
Gotta be something.
pamphlets and the periodical.
My reference is Signs of the Times, chapter 205.
So many chapters.
You read it if you want.
No,
No,
Do
I'm
you have a
Read.
date? What's your date?
No, my app just say chapter
Yeah,
205.
Exactly.
No,
That's
no, no,
why you're
go
not
ahead.
saying the actual.
I can give you a page, but I want us to read the chapter.
What
No,
is
Read
it?
it.
no,
Hey.
I didn't know
I
that there's so
cannot
much
find
chapters in there.
What is
Oh,
it,
yeah.
Devin?
That's
What
right.
is it? What will be under on? The Signs of the Times.
There's no chapter in mine. That's why I'm asking.
Oh,
I know that's what I
because
was
you guys have
wondering.
Apple.
It's
Fine.
not a- it's a
Android,
periodically,
folks.
Or what is it? Periodical? or-
December
Yeah,
1.
periodical.
Okay.
But if you give them the page, it might not reflect.
So that's why I'm asking for the date because how is
December
1
1, 18, I think 1888, wait, alright.
Huh?
December 1, 1881, the sons of Eli.
Okay,
December 8, 1881, the sons of Eli.
Okay.
1881.
So,
You wanna read it?
yeah, no, I'm not reading the whole
You want
thing.
the whole thing?
Because the thing is, it doesn't have a page number. For those who want
Okay, can you
page,
read a part of it?
I'm gonna read the portion that I want to emphasize.
Right.
Okay, hold on.
Delighted for
Hold on,
assist
hold on.
God's judgment upon sin.
Alright, brother, go ahead.
Man, okay, I got it. So the recreant priests added licentiousness to the dark catalog of their crimes, yet they still polluted by their presence the tabernacle of the Lord, and laden with sin dared to come into the presence of a holy God. As the men of Israel witnessed the corrupt course of the priest, they thought it safer for their families not to come up to the appointed place of worship. Many went from Shiloh with their peace disturbed, their indignation aroused, until they at last determined to offer their sacrifices themselves, concluding that this would be fully as acceptable to God as to sanction in any manner the abominations practiced in the sanctuary.
Ooh.
So-
So wait a minute. By their
Yeah,
abomination, they led
I don't-
Israel to sin even further.
Yes.
yes, and they did not want to go to worship
Uh-huh.
here because. So
So,
that's what, so, and that is, yeah.
alright, so can I finish my
No,
point?
Man, everybody's jumping ahead.
No, I'm just saying that, with so when I read through the rest, that's why I'm really encouraging us to read the chapter. We can sit here and talk about the parallel between Othniel, his kids, and scolding them and whatever, but the penalty that Eli was supposed to execute against these boys was death.
Yes.
He was
They-
supposed to kill his son?
Yes.
They were supposed to
Yes.
be killed because
Yeah.
of what they were doing,
Yes.
and he didn't want to
He
do that.
didn't want to do it. Mhm.
That's the duty that he neglected because they reached a point where they disregarded their father. So as adults, it's not toddlers pulling down things with pacifier in their mouth. They were adults who disregarded their dad, and because they profaned the sanctuary, the punishment was death. But Eli didn't want to execute that. And so Ellen White was pointing out in the chapter that by his failure to carry out the pronunciation that was due to these kids of his, that is adults, he basically is showing that God is not just. So people are leaving Shiloh, not coming anymore, because according to this here, they're like, wait a minute, if God can sit and allow this to go on, then our sacrifice is acceptable at home too, because this abomination is, nothing is being done, and that's why it says their indignation was aroused. So they're like, if I do my own thing at home, it's better seeing that these abomination is going on in the sanctuary.
Mhm.
But As a parent, no, think about this. As a parent, and you know, I've seen this a lot in where I grew up. No mother will tell the cop that her son is guilty of shooting and killing and robbing. She will wash, I know moms who wash the bloody clothes of their boys when they go out and do their rounds. I know moms who take money from their kids that go out to steal and all these things because the pain of a mother's heart to turn in her child to the cops because of the crime or whatever, you know. So what we're talking about in terms of Eli, it's the surface one, little tantrum here and there. But how many of us as parents would want to turn in a child that is worthy of death, like in the case of Eli? That's why I'm saying it's good if we can read these things, so we have a prophetic understanding from spirit prophecy, the weight of what was going on in child.
Could you tell me exactly where that is again? Because I'm.
It's written on the board.
December 1,
No, December 8th.
December 8th.
I thought you said December
December
1.
1.
No.
December 1,
That's why I'm
1881.
right.
December 1 is the sun.
December 1,
December
1881.
1,
That's why I'm like, where
1881.
Or
is
December 1.
Okay.
And she
12-1.
founded in where?
80.
The sons of Eli, signs of the times. It doesn't have a page.
It does,
I
yeah.
didn't.
There's no
December
page.
1, 1881.
Huh?
Yeah.
December 1,
the one says
1881.
The sons of
Australia,
Levi.
lesbian.
Alright.
And then
No.
Signs of the times.
Hold
You got
on, everybody, we're getting a little excited, okay? It was great. I love that,
We're
right?
digging deep.
But we're digging deep here, but since Davin jumped ahead,
Sorry, man.
let me just, before I start taking the other hands that were up, let me read a little reference here, since he did point out to what Ellen G. White wrote about this. She says, their crimes, talking about the sons of Eli, right? Their crimes were known to all Israel. Eli reproved them. He presented before them the enormity of their sin. It was not like a sin against each other, which officiating priests could atone for. But if the priests themselves sin against God and show open contempt for his authority, who should atone for them now? They regarded not the counsel of their father. Eli was judge and also high priest in Israel, and he was responsible for the conduct of his sons. He should have removed them at once from the priesthood and judged them as their case deserved. He knew that if he should do this, they must suffer death for their abominable example to Israel, permitting them, loaded with guilt, to occupy the relation of priest to Israel would lead the people to lightly regard crime and to despise the sacrificial offerings. So the point you made, and where I added a bit to what they were doing, caused Israel to seep further into apostasy, because it was never stopped and corrected. Crime started going up.
Could you tell me where that is, what you just read?
Same one.
So here's the thing, Sister
Next
Regina.
paragraph.
Spirit of prophecy,
Yeah.
SP.
What is
3,
that? ISP?
9.2.
That's
ISP
ISP.
3.
One.
Huh?
One SP.
Oh, one.
But I think anybody would agree with me is a parent, parenting starts when you're young. And so when we don't correct our children when they're young, it's easier not to correct them when they're older.
It's harder.
Harder to correct them.
And they don't listen to you even if you correct them. If you don't correct them when they're little and then they get older and you try to correct them, you're like, really? And they still gonna do what they want.
That's when the rod.
You're saying
Bring out the rod.
they're not at that age though. But you're
Don't
saying,
spoil the child.
but if they're used to correcting you if they're
They took
used
it
to
away,
listening
bro.
to you when they're young, They're more, I mean,
They're more apt to
they're
listen
more
to
apt to,
you
that's what I'm saying.
when they're old.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with
When
that.
a child was disobedient to their parents, especially the head of the household, they were taken outside of the camp and stoned to death because they were unruly.
Yeah, but I don't
But
think
see, he wasn't being a man of his household, a priest,
He was not.
you know, and he wasn't
He was
correcting
not.
them, and that's why God
Exactly. And I think it was the
took
weight.
him out in the same
The
day.
weight is
In
what
the
got
same-
to him, right?
in the
Because
same day.
he is also the judge.
Right.
So not only is
That
his
was
kid
his job.
guilty and he has to give him up, he's the one who's going to say, now you should be put to death. So he has to
Was he the one that had to
pronounce.
execute them himself?
No. He's
Or
the,
someone
he's
else,
the
he's
judge.
telling someone else to
Right.
execute them
Right.
in front of him.
Next.
Althea.
My Bible app gives me a few Ellen White quotes from this chapter, and it's just 4 paragraphs from the second Bible commentary.
Bible
It says
commentary.
2 BC.
2 BC, yeah.
2 BC, I guess that's page 1009,
009.
point 1, point 2, point 3, and point 4.
Okay. Yep.
It says, Eli's criminal neglect. The course of Eli, his sinful indulgence as a father, and his criminal neglect as a priest of God, presents a striking and painful contrast to the firmness and self-denial of the faithful Hannah. Eli was acquainted with the divine will. He knew what characters God could accept and what he would condemn. Yet he suffered his children to grow up with unbridled passions, perverted appetites, and corrupt morals. That's one. Eli had instructed his children in the law of God and had given them a good example in his own life, but this was not his whole duty. God required him, both as a father and as a priest, to restrain them from following their own perverse will. This he had failed to do. Warning to parents following Eli's example. If parents who are following Eli's example of neglect could see the results of the education they are giving their children, they would feel that the curse which fell on Eli would assuredly fall on them. The sin of rebellion against parental authority lies at the very foundation of the misery and crime in the world today. Many youths become infidels. By precept and example, let the young be taught reverence for God and for his word. Many of our youth are becoming infidels at heart because of the lack of devotion in their parents. And that's from November, Signs of Time, November
24, you read 24? Oh.
But there's a whole bunch, there's November 10th.
Yeah, November 24 is,
But-
yeah.
Do you got one, Irene?
Bible commentary,
Okay.
page 1009.
Right here.
Second.
It's the whole thing about him, and it's a scary read.
Is it?
Huh?
You got more?
It's the one now,
You got-
November
It's a
24,
responsibility, is what
81.
it is.
Yeah, basically you're talking about, it's really Eli's
Hear that?
fault,
Don't
why his sons were like that. And so that's why he also died.
Yep.
The way he did.
Yep, God also executed
Yeah.
judgment
But we really don't
on
know
him.
how old they were, because the Jewish had something about after age of accountability, after 12, right?
Well, hold on.
They were They could have
The
17.
priest,
Spoiled his children.
they, correct me if I'm wrong, the priests, they were at least 30, because they had to be 30 to
Thank
be
you,
the
brother.
priests, right?
Oh,
Okay.
Give her the text.
So
give her
they
the
were
text.
at least 30. You have the text?
Seriously.
Leviticus, right?
To be a priest, you have to be
Because
over.
she's standing.
This is in Leviticus, I think, right?
Yeah, no,
Signs of the
she
time.
was talking about.
In order to be a priest,
You have to be over 30.
You have to be-
there was an age limit.
Right.
You have to be over 30 to 50
Something like that.
before you
November
can be a
24.
priest.
So did they just get to be a priest because it's in the family of the
Yes.
Levites? Their
Yeah.
fathers,
Yes.
all the
God's
children were
word.
there. Okay.
And I'll tell you
God's
one
word
more
and
nugget.
parents died.
Jesus began ministering.
30 years old. For a reason.
32.
This is the reason.
No, 30.
Yeah, I was
Goes
thinking
back.
32, sorry.
That is the reason. Okay, so, yeah, man.
Anyone wants the reference? I don't hear anyone
Yes.
asking.
You wanna
for
bring it
the
up?
I want the
So you
reference.
guys gonna say Arthur said
I want
and
the
David
reference,
said.
please.
I've seen
What's
it
the
many
reference?
times.
Put in the word 30 in your Bible app and you'll find the quotes. I'm serious, that's how I found it. I typed in 30 years old, and that's when the text came out that talks about the priest was 30 years old. THIRTY years old.
Okay.
Uh,
30 years
Cool
old.
down.
If there's not multiple references,
Oh, you guys
in,
wanted
it's
a
in
verse, huh?
Leviticus.
Oh, hell.
But
I'm giving you the
Yeah,
sheep,
go-
you go milk it for
go-
butter.
go look for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Arthur, we were talking about the
Yeah, you need to get him
Not
back.
just-
He's supposed to pass him when he sits down. He
Yeah,
needs to be
yeah.
up there preserving energy.
There, man, he's getting,
Yeah.
getting excited, bro, okay?
Yeah.
Donovan, yes.
Yeah, we were talking about the mannerism of the children of those parents in those days. And you remember Jacob and Esau, Ishmael?
Uh-huh.
You see, God said, Jacob I love, Esau I hated, because he did not, Jacob, he got his wife in the correct way in which he should have gotten his wife among the Israelites,
Uh-huh.
or the house of Israel, whatever you want, you know what I'm saying? But Esau, he went and married some, what do you call those nation?
He
Yes, you know what I'm trying to say, even Ishmael. So that's why God will say, look, because remember the priest of the family, right, that is the line which Christ must control. And you have to be adhering to all of these principles. And Esau did not adhere to them. You know, so
You're right, because then they didn't want him to get married to.
to the Israelites, I mean, the house of Israel, to the house of,
Yeah.
they went outside.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing as being unequally yoked, unbelievers and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't want him, yeah. There was disrespect.
He wants
They
us to
didn't
follow
do
his
what,
covenant.
yeah, they didn't want to do, Esau didn't do what his parents' wishes
Yeah.
were.
Right.
And even though David was following the will of God, and he got off course, but he repented and asked the Lord to forgive him, and he continued to do the will of God, opposed to Eli's sons and Aaron's sons that continued to do things that they shouldn't have done.
Strange fire.
But I'm kind
strange
of
fire.
wondering at the point where they first did it, rather, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Shouldn't they,
But he
judgment should have
forgives them
been,
and expects them to do what's right, but then they continue to do it their way. And then he forgives them again, trying to give them a chance to repent and ask forgiveness and go out and walk the right way, but they refuse to do so.
but I'm wondering with them, in their case, because of the office that they held.
Yes, it's up.
Wait.
Because
Bro.
the character did not
This is good,
represent
Arthur.
Christ.
Arthur, you just open up a box,
Have a good
man.
night.
Yeah,
no,
the character did not represent Christ, because Christ is a judge, and the character that he has, the priest should reflect. Remember the whole sanctuary, the priest should represent all the qualities of Christ.
Yes.
Sinless and Eli being the judge, or the high priest,
Yes.
whatever.
The,
He should
the,
have execute the correct judgment.
yeah, and the implications snowballed, right?
Yeah.
Everything snowballed all the way down to verse 31, where God says, what? I will cut off thine arm, the arm of thy father's house.
31, where are you?
There shall be no an old man in thy house. Thou shalt see an enemy in my habitation, and all the wealth which God shall give Israel, and there shall not be an old man in thy house forever. And thy man and the man of thine, whom I shall not cut off from mine altar, shall be to consume thine eyes, and to grieve thine heart, and all the increase of thine house shall die in the flower of their age.
Mercy.
It's a rebuke. It's a rebuke, but God's basically saying, I will forsake your house. I will be leaving you. So that's another point. This is a type. This is the type that's happening right here, right now. This is God basically telling Israel, look what you have done, and the cause and effect, right? The effect is, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. Because you guys are an abomination at this moment. What is the antitype of this?
Everything that's going on in our church now.
We're going too far. Don't go that far. Stay in the Bible, okay? Because we can go there, but that's like over here in the timeline. Okay? What's over here? What's over here? Here's a hint.
Talking about the cross.
Oh, okay.
There's a hint.
Yeah, I mean, she said it.
Well, he wants to get closer to the
God
cross.
forsakes the sanctuary.
No. So he forsakes the sanctuary here in Shiloh, right? And this is the first time this happens. This is the first time, right? So we got a type here in the Old Testament. This happens again in the New Testament.
When Jesus said, your house is left to you
That was
his
his
desolate.
That was his It's okay.
I'm gonna go as far to say
AD 70.
Oh.
the temple is gone. Now you don't even have a house.
Yeah, but when Christ pronounced it said your house is left unto you, desolate. Christ was the one who was the glory in the house. So from Christ exit.
So from here to here, what do we have? We have sacrifices continuing in the temple for no reason, for naught.
Right.
Because Christ was the true lamb and everything was done.
Right.
But Israel kept going until they had no more
Right.
sanctuary. Virginia.
It makes me think about how if anybody read into Samuel right before there was a king, and I'm kind of going a little off, but he did the same thing with his son. Samuel did the same thing with his son.
No, he did not.
Yes, he did. Later, Samuel was his king. His sons, they didn't want Samuel's sons
Right.
to take over
But he was not
Samuel.
responsible.
Yeah, because he wasn't disciplining his sons. You need to go back and read. Samuel was not disciplining his sons as well.
Did you? I didn't see that mentioned. But if you have seen it, I will not. Okay, if you have seen it. But I thought it was a different situation, right?
Well, no, they weren't. I don't think his son, because Samuel was what, a king? A judge, right?
No, Samuel was a prophet.
He was a prophet, but he also
and a
was
priest.
a judge too, wasn't he?
A judge, yeah, two. He has two offices, a prophet and
He was a judge of,
Samuel priest.
But he was not a king. He was not a king.
He was not a king.
Priest.
I believe he was
Priest, yes.
judge.
I'm not gonna say
his two sons
either,
were
or he
priests.
might have been a judge.
He was a priest. He was a
Well,
priest. He could offer sacrifice.
He
Oh,
was,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
Which
He was a
one?
priest and his two sons were
He
priests.
was okay. Maybe that's what he's a prophet and a priest.
Right, a prophet and a priest.
But I
I
thought
don't
Samuel,
think he was a
wasn't
judge because he counseled Saul. He counseled the king, right?
Right, and he,
Samuel.
Yeah, Samuel.
but what I'm saying is, I remember reading that during the time, and I'm not,
Where's the reference?
well, no, I'm not even.
Well, okay, you're making a
All
point.
I'm saying, I'm making a point of
Yeah.
some of the people, like even Gideon.
Mhm.
I believe reading
They were
about Gideon, a
judges.
lot of the different people, yeah, Gideon
They
was
were
a judge.
judges.
But a lot of the different people, they didn't do their they didn't discipline their children, that's what I was trying to bring up.
Right. Exactly. And
So,
I mean, I think the thing that we can see here, right, is something as, I guess we could think of it as, oh, it's something small, it's just my kids, right? I'm not disciplining just my kids. Who's it gonna affect? It's only gonna affect here. But here we're seeing that small little mistake from Eli affecting the whole nation
yeah.
of Israel. And it just snowballed into apostasy.
So, sister, have you seen it in the spirit of prophecy where Ellen mentioned that Samuel was responsible for his son?
Let's try to get one more.
It's ironic because it's Eli also raised Samuel. And Samuel is the replacement of the Lord.
Yeah. So let's keep going here because we're almost. Yeah, we're way behind.
Part 4.
I thought we were gonna get. Hey, we still got that to cover. We're not gonna get to it. But excellent points that we've hit on here, and I especially wanted to take note of the type that we've just come across, because this is big. This is big. God forsaking the sanctuary, especially when it happens after Christ. And now the message goes out to the
Yes,
Gentiles.
and that's why Hebrew was written. Hebrew was written because of that, because they were still offering sacrifice. And Paul is saying, look, we have a better sacrifice, we have a better this, a better that in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
they were still clinging onto the temple because the Romans were to come.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying, look, this is not going to happen. So Paul, that's why that book was written, to see that they would leave for the hills when the time of trouble came. Only Christians were saved.
Yes. So we read in Samuel 2 that God said he would bring up another priest to take Eli's place, basically. And that we see that in Samuel chapter 3. First Samuel chapter 3. It's Samuel, right? So there's the whole story of Samuel going to sleep and God saying, Samuel, come forth. He thinks it's Eli, and he goes back and forth. And, it's a nice little story that a lot of children's stories have been adapted from. So we're going to skip chapter 3. But that's how Samuel shows up. And he becomes a blessed priest, right? Becomes a blessed priest. Okay, so I was hoping that we were going to get a bit further, but we hit some excellent points here. So it was worth hitting those
at one time.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of points that we are skipping over.
Yeah, we're hitting
rushing.
a lot. We're hitting a lot. But these are the important points,
Yes.
right? These are the important points. So it makes sense for us to spend some time going over them and seeing the application, right? And then seeing the type and the antitype for our day, of course. So that was one of the main reasons I wanted for us to focus on this one and not so much, what happened with the transporting of the ark and all that in Joshua. There's a lot of conquest in there. You can read it at your own time if you like, but we jumped over that because this right here is where the important meat is. Unfortunately, we have a lot more to read. We're not going to get to it today, so I think maybe we should try to go ahead and just read one more chapter. So 1 Samuel chapter 4, and we'll end it after that because there's some good points here, and I think this will take us to the end here. So 1 Samuel chapter 4, and Samuel's already on the scene here. So once everyone is there. Amen. Alright, so 1 Samuel chapter 4. And the word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle, and pitched beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines pitched in Aphek. And the Philistines put themselves in array against Israel, and when they joined battle, Israel was smitten before the Philistines. And they slew of the army in the field about 4,000 men. We'll read like 5 verses each, and then do like that, okay? And when the people were come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Wherefore hath the Lord smitten us today before the Philistines? Let us fetch the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of Shiloh unto us, that when it cometh among us, it may save us out of the hand of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh that they might bring from thence the ark of the covenant of the Lord of hosts, which dwelleth between the cherubims, and the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. And when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. Now, before we keep going, there's another point here, right? It says that they were going to fetch the ark of the covenant. That when it come among it, will save us out of the hands of our enemies. They were looking at the ark.
Because they got a heart.
They were not looking at God. They were not looking at Christ. Let us go get God to be with us. This is how far the apostasy was taken. Now, what we basically have here is idolatry. Idolatry.
Because they are thinking that the ark is the Torah instead of God.
Yeah, the box is going to save us. Okay. Verse 6. Yeah, Gary. Sure.
And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, "What meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews?" And they understood that the ark of the Lord was come into the camp. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God is come into the camp." And they said, "Woe unto us, for there hath not been such a thing heretofore. Woe unto us, who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and quiet yourselves like men, O ye Philistines, that ye be not servants unto the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Quiet yourselves like men, quit yourselves like men, and fight. And the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and they fled every man into his tent. And there was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. And the ark of God was taken, and the 2 sons of Eli and Phinehas were slain. And there ran a man of Benjamin out of the army, and came to Shiloh the same day with his clothes rent and with earth upon his head. And when he came, lo, Eli sat upon a seat by the wayside watching, for his heart trembled for the ark of God. And when the men came into the city and told it, all the city cried out. And when Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, "What meaneth the noise of this tumult?" And the man came in hastily and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old, and his eyes were dim, that he could not see. And the man said unto Eli, I am he that came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army. And he said, what is there done, my son?
Pause right there. I'll read a little bit here of Spirit of Prophecy. And when the ark of the covenant of the Lord came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so the earth rang again. And when the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, what meaneth the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews? And they understood that the ark of the Lord was come into the camp. And the Philistines were afraid, for they said, God is come into the camp. And they said, woe unto us, for there hath not been such a thing heretofore. Woe unto us, who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods that smote the Egyptians with all the plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and quiet yourselves like men. O ye Philistines, that ye be not servants unto the Hebrews, as they have been to you. Quit yourselves like men and fight. And the Philistines fought, and Israel was smitten, and they fled every man into his tent. And there was a very great slaughter, for there fell of Israel 30,000 footmen. And the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. The ark was taken. Let's keep going, because now something's about to happen to Eli.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mama.
Okay. Oh,
18.
18. Okay. Sorry. And it came to pass, when he made mention of the ark of God, that he fell from off the seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck broke, and he died. For he was an old man, and heavy, and he had judged Israel 40 years. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas' wife, was with child, near to be delivered. And when she heard the tidings that the ark of God was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead, she bowed herself and travailed, for her pains came upon her. And about the time of her death, the woman that stood by her said unto her, fear not, for thou hast borne a son. But she answered not, neither did she regard it. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said, the glory is departed from Israel, for the ark of God is taken.
Yeah. So the Philistines thought that the ark was the Israelites' God, right? They didn't know that the living God who created the heavens and the earth gave his law upon Sinai, sent prosperity and adversity according to the obedience or transgression of the law that was contained in the chest. So, this is something we're about to see here. It's going to be kind of what I call like the personality of God, right? If you are faithful and just, you are blessed. If you are evil and transgress the law, you are cut down. And the Philistines are about to see this happen to themselves. Now that they have the ark in their possession, they're going to see how dirty they actually are. But we're going to have to see that next week, because we're out of time. We're out of time. And, chapter 5, 6, and 7 gets really dirty. So,
I'm good. I got it.
anybody have any comments? Anything else?
This was good.
That's good.
Yeah, this was really good.
Let me read one more section here. So, God permitted his ark to be taken by their enemies to show Israel how vain it was to trust in the ark, the symbol of his presence, while they were profaning the commandments contained in the ark. God would humble them by removing them that sacred ark that boasted their strength and confidence. So once again, the transgression of the law is what changes everything. If Israel didn't apostatize, this would have never happened to them. But the reason they apostatized and they began making abominations in the sanctuary, as part of the offerings to God himself, they were punished heavily.
30,000.
Where's that at?
What was that
Arthur?
you read out of?
Same one.
Okay.
Oh,
Just
okay.
read this whole
Always
chapter.
have chapter.
Read this whole chapter. This is chapter 36, the Ark of God. First Spirit of Prophecy. This
Chapter
is-
36?
Yeah, it's big. It'll go along. We're going along that chapter as we continue, right? And that's what's leading us through all of this here. Davin.
Yeah, one of the one of the applications that came up from that for me personally is we can be doing some things that we deem to be sincere. For example, looking at it where it's dealing with they were just paying attention to the furniture itself while breaking the commandments. And that brings in like Protestant worship where here we are worshiping, we're in sincerity and we're doing this, but at the same time, while we're professing to be worshiping God, the Bible is telling us how we should be doing it. So it's like we're sincerely wrong, basically. And I remember when, I'm in the Sunday church and the Adventist lady was witnessing, sharing the Adventist message with me, and she said, it's okay to worship God every day and you should worship, but if you're not going to worship him on the Sabbath day, then you're in a dilemma here because the commandment asks you to worship on the Sabbath, and through that I'm learning that when I'm gonna be sincere about something, it's a very safe position to ensure that this is in accordance with what the Lord says. And that's why when we're in this room studying and people, even myself, we have some good ideas and good comments. When we cannot really back some stuff up with Bible and spirit of prophecy, then it can create a little gray area because 10 people can say, I don't see any problem with this. And one verse can say, well, there is a problem with that, And I think that's one of the lessons that Israel didn't realize. They were so locked in on the furnitures, which a lot of us as Adventists were so locked in on the building that when we come to church to keep the Sabbath, we are arrayed a certain way, but when we're outside of that building, we change our clothes and we change our attitude, and we're thinking we're still keeping the Sabbath holy, when in reality, if we dress a certain way for worship in the building because the piano and the pew is there, then how can I go to God in my family worship half naked? You see what I'm saying?
And
God's presence in worship, it should be reverence whether I'm in my house or I'm in a building. I almost said church, but I'm not going to say church in this context because that's the mindset. Reverence is for this building because this is what we say to church. And when God revealed that to me, I shared it with my wife. I said, hey, Reen, when someone knocks on the door to see her in the morning, she puts her hair together, she checks herself in the mirror, And I said, how should we approach God for family worship? Sometimes I see people doing family worship in little shorts and little skimpy stuff. And I'm like, you would never go to church like that to worship God. So what's the difference between worshiping God here? And that's the lesson of that. They were paying this reverence to the furniture and not regard the God of the furniture. And it led them into problems, which we should take lessons from it.
Yeah.
And one thing,
Yeah.
also,
Hey, hold on. Donovan, hold on.
No, you shouldn't.
Demetrius, hold on. Demetrius had his hand up.
Oh, no, I was just wondering after, because I'm not deep in the spirit of prophecy. So I was just wondering, was with the verse that you read from there combined also with this last verse of chapter 4, is it basically pointing out that the Ark of the Covenant was allowed to get, was permitted to be taken from them because they were idolizing themselves over the Ark itself instead of following the commandments of God? Because what does it mean by the glory has departed? Like that sounds like they're saying that they believe that God has left them because they no longer have.
Exactly. God has left them. That's exactly what
For the
that's saying.
disobedience.
But the problem there was the disobedience, and they stopped looking at the law. They just looked at the ark itself. And they were thinking, hey, this is what gives us our victory. When we have this, we can cross the river. When we have this, we can conquer, cities. Forgetting that Christ was there. He crossed the river first, and that's why the waters receded. Right. Christ was here. He walked around the city before the ark. Right. And that's why the walls came down.
They weren't even supposed to touch the ark.
They didn't even think that it was because we're faithful to the law itself. And this is why Christ is with us. No. We just have this ark here. Let's bring it, and the ark is what gives us victory. So being faithful to the law is the number one thing.
Yeah. And in reality too, the Ark of the Covenant was not supposed to be touched or removed from the sanctuary unless they are journeying. Also, where it's kept, it's in the most holy place. Only the high priest should go into the most holy place on the Day of Atonement. So them going and grabbing the ark just shows how many principles they broke. They were regular priests who does not have access to the most holy place. It was not the Day of Atonement, so they should not even be in there in the first place. So by breaking all those principles, God no doubt couldn't show up, because we read the quote earlier on that through their profanity and their behavior, people were saying all this injustice and abomination is happening in the sanctuary. I might as well worship at home. It's the same thing. My house is not this messed up like what these priests are doing, So God in reality couldn't show up to bless them in that venture that they were doing. One example I learned as a non-Adventist was I can pray and bless a meal where I'm partaking of pork. I say a grace over pork meat and eat it, and I was believing that God would bless it, but He didn't bless pork. Even though I say the grace and maybe end with in Jesus' name we pray, but the principle of His commandment here says this is not a flesh that I should partake of. So even though I pray and ask God to bless, and I do the formal religious thing, the principle in His word is not going to contradict.
It's being presumptuous.
Exactly.
It's selfish.
Yeah. So
to the max.
It's a long list of what led up to that ark being taken and the glory departed. Because it's called the Ark of the Covenant because it's a covenant relationship that comes with obedience to the commandments. The thing that was written that was placed in the box, that is the principle that governs the covenant.
And
Keep the commandment and the protection of God. And when you do it too, He instructs.
We have to take off.
This thing that you were talking about worship on every day. Worshiping on every day. That is actually contrary, because the command says, work 6 days. That is a part of the command, work 6 days and worship 1 day.
Yeah. Now, David made an excellent point that we can apply to the modern day Israel, but I'm not gonna go there right now.
He's up next week.
You know?
Okay,
We're
so
just having a
who's
sunset prayer,
Arthur's up
so.
next week again?
Yes,
So
Yes.
Arthur,
he's
when
not
do
done.
you think I could be I need to prepare mine?
Have it ready every week. What if Arthur
I'll
is
let you
sick
know.
and he cannot present? That's why I come up here every week prepared in
No,
case.
but I mean, when do I expect to be able to do mine? I understand what you're saying.
You said Art said a
I'm
week,
gonna
3 weeks.
I'm gonna say a few weeks.
A few weeks?
Cause you know what? Today, I sincerely thought we would get to David, at least. I thought we were gonna get to Solomon. We're not even close now.
Yeah, this is not, we cannot rush.
We're
These
not-
topics, there's a
we
lot in it,
can't
we
rush.
cannot rush.
No, because we need to.
Regina, expect 2 weeks, baby.
Well, maybe
yeah.
3.
Maybe
3
three.
weeks.
Yeah.
Sister Regina, take my advice though. Be ready every week.
Yeah,
Be ready every week.
okay.
Hey, cause I might get sick.
Right.
Can I just say, in 1 Samuel 8, it talks about Samuel appointing his kids as judges, and then the disobedience.
Well, we didn't even get to 5, We're jumping ahead. Okay.
Oh, no, because I had mentioned that about Samuel wasn't disciplining his kids.
Oh, okay. Well, this was a deep study. I'm very thankful to God. Let's thank God for this study. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing your Spirit into this study today and showing us so many things that we were able to understand the meaning of what has happened to the old Israel and how it applies to us today. Lord, be with us as the Sabbath is over, as we go off to our separate homes. Give us journeying mercies. And as we start this new week, help us to focus on your glory and not forget the things that we have learned today, but apply them in our life, that we have a thing in our mind for the rest of the week that points us back to the Bible and gives us the interest to dive deeper into your word while we are apart until next Sabbath. Lord, thank you once again for this day and your presence with us. Be with us, guide us, protect us, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Word.
Oh, man, check on-